All pop culture references mentioned during this podcast are analyzed and scored by artificial intelligence. Jeff and Chris have learned not to argue with AI's decisions and strongly suggest you shut your mouth as well.
All right, so we're back. It's episode number 58, Chris. We are closing in on episode 60. Any minute now, we're going to be 60.
Wait. Thanks for the reminder. Appreciate that.
Episode 60. We'll be on episode 60, but right now it's episode number 58. So let's jump right in and take care of a little matter of business, which is who won episode 57, right? Let's take a look at these scores. Let's go straight to the liquor cabinet, open that thing up, and let's find out who won the contest. So the first topic we discussed was obviously film projectors. That was kind of the thing that carried us through, right? Back in the bad old days, you had the big old film projector. Chris was one of those AV kids. Oh, yeah.
I was.
And you threaded those things, Chris, and you got your face and your hands right near that light bulb. So that was... That was the gist of the last episode, was watching films in whatever, sociology class or whatever you were in, English class. One of those films was one of my favorites, right? I Am Joe's Heart. And this featured famously a claymation heart that was looking at itself in the mirror and didn't like what it saw, Chris. It had body dysmorphia, just the most bizarre scene you've ever seen. And this was a warning to kids like us. Take care of your heart and don't be like Joe, who happens to be 20 years older than you, chain smoking cigarettes, in a loveless marriage, drinking and smoking, and then trying to do pickup shots in a basketball court while clutching his heart.
Right. No exercise. It's drinking a fifth of scotch every day. Yeah, don't be like Joe.
Yeah. And then here we are in the 1980s. We're in, 7th grade, 8th grade, and we're the ones that are supposed to have a heart attack. Okay, sure. The other one that we brought up, Chris, and nobody gets points for this because these are just the common topics, was the film that I recalled, which was basically Don't Smoke, right? And it was a guy literally having his lung removed in front of everybody in the classroom on the film strip there. And it was disgusting, right? We actually see a black lung being pulled out of a human being. And in the end, he gets to be back with his family. But Chris, why? Why? Were we smoking clove cigarettes? I don't know what they thought we were doing. But again, I don't think 12-year-olds were going to die of lung cancer. But so let's get straight to my polls. So my poll was number one. I joked about this film that I saw where a guy was wearing glasses as an experiment and it flipped everything upside down. And once he finally took the glasses off a couple weeks later, his brain now flipped everything the other way, right? So this guy literally was doing an experiment to see if the human brain could right itself. And unfortunately for him, once he took the glasses off, whatever the brain did to fix it now screwed him up completely, and he almost went insane and killed himself. We also talked about Johnny Tremaine. I got points for mentioning that his thumb was actually fused through a horrible burn accident to his palm. Right. I guess that extra little bit was enough to get me a little bit of a point there, Chris. And what else we got here? I mentioned Jonathan Livingston Seagull, which was a very popular book back then. I never read it. I don't know anything about it. I just know a bunch of girls did. So I was getting 30,000 points on that one, it looks like. And then the one that I got the most points, 115,000 points, Chris, was kids in the 70s that were in all of these commercials like Stay Alive, the survival game, right? And Connect 4, and He Likes It, Hey Mikey. And they all inexplicably had, and they all inexplicably had New York accents, right? These are all kids from Brooklyn. We don't know why. There were so many kids from Brooklyn in these commercials, but there you go. So that's me. What happened to Chris, everybody? You matched my Jonathan Livingston Seagull with Are You There, God? It's me, Margaret. Yep. And then, Chris, what else did you do here? You got that King of Kings reference. Who was that again?
Yeah, Jeffrey Hunter. Yeah, it's Jesus and the first captain of the Starship Enterprise. I mean, do what you will with that. But yeah, first actor you saw Jesus from, head on, face on, as opposed to the back of his head. So yes, blonde-haired, blue-eyed Jesus.
I feel like I should have gotten negative points because I did not remember that Jeffrey Hunter was Captain Christopher Pike in the original Star Trek series. So
that's a little disappointing. Yeah.
it's very disappointing. I feel like I should have been docked points. Yeah. Now, Chris, you also did a pretty amazing callback to the game Mousetrap. Chris, can you do the impression of the narrator of the Mousetrap commercial one more time?
I can try it again. Oh no, you're caught in a mousetrap. And it's like that, and that was it. And that was the whole point of the game. You wanted to get caught in the mousetrap, didn't you? I don't know.
You did. But to your excellent point, right, Chris? Nobody ever played the game. You just built the mousetrap and then set it off, right? You did get an honorable mention for the game Dominoes, which, as you point out, isn't really a game at all. Anybody that had dominoes in their house, it was just set them up and then knock them down. It had nothing to do with playing some sort of strategic numbers game. Everybody just used them in the same way, right? How many dominoes can I stick in a row and then knock them all over? So let's take a look at who won this episode, which is actually last episode of Nice Poll.
Oh, God damn it.
Yeah. Now,
what?
I know, right?
10,000 points?
Yeah.
10,000 points.
We've said this many times, but in the world of AI scoring us, because it gives so many points for things, 10,000 points is the same as maybe losing by 1 point in the world of AI, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
And I will question some of these, right? Because I think you should have gotten a little more for that Domino's reference. Maybe I got too much for one of them, but again, that's the beauty, right? We can't hope to get in the brain of AI, Chris, not until it takes over the world, right? So
right. Okay, but it's I'm gonna have to hold back from trying to slip in some extra, I don't know, Dick York, Dick Sargent references or something, just to because this is this point pisses me off.
Well, I think you won the last one though, Chris, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't care. I want to win every one.
I know you do.
I'm a sore loser. Haven't you? Ask my kids. Haven't you learned this by now?
Well, let's put this behind us and let's just blame it on AI. So, Chris, we've actually had some pretty good surprises in the old liquor cabinet down below in the 58 episodes that we've done so far.
Wow.
And this one, though, Chris, this one that you're about to see, the person that is waiting in the liquor cabinet right now, I thought having Danny Bonaducci come on the show was pretty damn amazing, and it was. We thank him so much. He's awesome, and we definitely hope to have him back. But I think you're going to be very surprised this time around. So again, Chris, I'm not going to say without further ado. I'm just going to say, let's take a look.
Hi there, my little Jeff and Chris.
Hey, Malcolm McDowell, thank you so much. I can't even tell you how much Chris and I appreciate your popping in right now and coming on the show.
How goes it? Is it real horror show?
God, I hope not.
Are you getting ready with the old Malacco?
Actually, this is true. I actually put hot green tea in here, if you must know. Chris, what do you got there? What do you got there in your mug?
Malacco.
Plus, getting ready for the old in-out.
Not me. Maybe when I was a little younger, though.
Yeah, no one that's listened to the podcast believes that, Chris. Malcolm, Chris used to ignore girls that gave him their phone number.
Real horror show. Or maybe a little of the old ultra-violence.
Yeah, there you go. Ask Jeff about lighting his best friend Scott on fire or pushing him off a cliff.
Oh, come on. I don't believe you.
That is true, but I do think you had to be there.
You discuss pop culture trivia from the 70s and 80s on their Nice Pull podcast.
That's right, but it's also centered on our memories of growing up in San Diego.
Geez, that sounds really boring. Apparently, you go down ridiculously boring rabbit holes.
We
That's
do.
true.
Yeah,
That is true.
we do. Yeah. Okay, I actually have a real question here, Malcolm. It's not about Clockwork Orange or Jeff's personal favorite, Caligula, but he does think that Stanley Kubrick was secretly hired by the CIA to film a fake moon landing. When you were working on a Clockwork Orange, did you ever get any clues that he actually might be doing that?
Yeah, I could give you so much minutiae about the movies I do, but I don't want to bore your audience any more than they are at the moment.
That's fair.
Okay, okay, but wait. When you were filming Caligula,
Bye-bye.
That was fun. I guess he's gone.
he's
That's
gone.
what happens, Chris. The cabinet opens, the cabinet shuts. You never know what's in there, man. It could be a slee stack. It could be a bass-playing red-headed partridge. It could be a commercial or a PSA that everyone's forgotten about for good reasons. Or it could be Malcolm motherfucking McDowell.
Or
You don't know.
Maybe we rename it the Morocco cabinet because apparently I have that in there. So maybe, I don't know.
I like that.
Yeah, well, we'll try for next time.
Very cool. Well, shoot, I'm going to have a hard time living that down. That is absolutely amazing. As hard as it is to leave the liquor cabinet or the Morocco cabinet and somehow limp along and move on with this episode after we just hung out with
Right.
one of the coolest dudes, you know, in
Totally.
cinema history in terms of just like cult
Yeah.
fan favorite pop culture.
Mhm.
Chris, I believe you even had the poster for A Clockwork Orange in
I
your bedroom for a while.
did.
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
One of those movies that I saw at way too young an age. And again, it's probably looking back at it, probably like maybe I liked it a little too much, but I never did participate in the ultraviolence. I never kicked anybody in the head or committed any assaults while singing in the rain, and I never wore a bowler or a jockstrap outside of my pants. So there you go.
You never wore a bowler and a jockstrap at the same time, Chris. Let's put it that way.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Details.
But I gotta give you huge credit again for two things. Number one, that is a very disturbing poster, right? Malcolm McDowell with his eyes being held open by the lid locks, right?
The lid locks.
And the fact that you were hip enough and cool enough to actually have that in your room and not be scared by it every single night is a testament to that. But Chris, once again,
that was me.
Somehow your dad or your mom, or I don't know how you got under the radar. Your older siblings just didn't care or whatever it was. You were able to see a completely inappropriate, basically hard R. Some might even say NC-17, right? I mean, this movie is, maybe even X-rated.
Yeah,
So
I think so.
How old were you when you saw A Clockwork Orange?
Older than when I saw The Exorcist and older than when I saw Jaws.
Thank God.
Probably 12 or 13.
So what, 7, 8 years old?
13 maybe.
Oh, okay.
Maybe 13, maybe 14.
All right.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't think I've seen it since, to be honest with you. I don't think as great as it was, I don't know if I need to watch it again. Let's just put it that way.
It is one of those movies where it pulls you in, very Kubrick, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like The Shining. Once you've experienced The Shining, you're like, yeah, I'm done.
That was great.
I get it.
Great.
That put me in a place that is very uncomfortable. Well done, Stanley. So Stanley Kubrick, man, that was great that you tried to slip that question in there. Thank you for doing that on my behalf. I really appreciate it because,
of course,
Chris, you know how much I love me them conspiracies.
I do. And it's kind of funny to think about how long we, again, heading towards 60 episodes, and we've made reference. We probably make a conspiracy episode or a conspiracy reference in almost every episode, but to actually, and even go on off a little tangent, maybe a nice pull here or there, but to focus on them and discuss them at length, long overdue.
I agree. Yeah, no, I agree. And I'm really kind of fascinated by not even so much my stories from the crypt or Tales from Beyond or the Twilight Zone, when it comes to the paranormal writ large, whatever you want to say. I'm also fascinated to hear your stories, right? Because everybody has some story. What do you want to start on, Chris? If you were to spin the big wheel of conspiracies, what would you like to start with?
Well, I think, and I don't know if we were, and I never heard it as designated. I think we were kind of the conspiracy generation. I think it was the most, because I think by the time we were kids and impressionable enough to the point, that's when all the media started to come together, right? Because television and films, and I think there at that point it had been 20 years into in the 70s when everybody had a TV and they're looking for content, and they didn't
Yeah.
call it content then. Um, but to me, it starts almost exclusively with UFOs, right? Unidentified flying objects, especially, I mean, you just mentioned like the Twilight Zone. And if you want to get into the Outer Limits, and then even the shows that we watch, whether it was Star Trek and um, uh, Lost in Space or any of the other shows that came after. There was even a show, remember, called UFO or Space 1990. But all of these shows and the UFOs themselves, the books, Chariots of the Gods, all in search of that whole thing.
Yeah.
UFOs just seem to be prevalent for so many reasons, and then go obviously then way before we were even born. Area 51, right? The desert, the plains, the downed, reportedly captured, alien and flying saucer, whatever. So I think there, by that point, by the time we were really digging into this media, there was just so much to sort of poke around in and get a piece of. And I'm sure you had your favorites and the ones that you that really stuck with you.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I was into lots of paranormal stuff. I was a big, reader back in the
Uh-huh.
day in grade school and stuff, and I always was the one that would gravitate towards the weird cryptozoological,
Mm-hmm.
uh, things, or UFOs. But I remember In Search of, which we have mentioned multiple times, right? Hosted by Leonard Nimoy.
The one
That
and
was the
only.
one that got me to start thinking about
Mm-hmm.
UFOs a little more seriously.
Okay.
And to your point earlier, Chariots of the Gods, which
Mm-hmm.
Chris, I mean, when you think about Chariots of the Gods, when that book came out, it really was the beginning of the Ancient Aliens History Channel obsession, right? I mean, it's like
Right.
it's the
Right.
same thing, right?
Right.
Some would say, right? As
Mm-hmm.
ancient alien historians believe, right? But who
Mm-hmm.
built them?
Right.
And that I think the big connection with Chariots of the Gods, right, was how could these pyramids have been built? It must
Uh-huh.
have been with otherworldly help, right? And that whole
Mm-hmm.
concept just became so interesting and so exciting. And the trailers and the advertisements on TV, when
Yeah.
you're a kid and you're sitting in front of that TV set again with only 4 stations and there isn't
Mm-hmm.
an internet. My
Right.
God, you're just filling in the blanks on, is this possible? Could there really be aliens from another planet? Um, and Chris, I think we might have mentioned this, but back in the day, right, in the 60s and 70s even, all of the sitcoms that were big, all of them had at least one UFO episode, believe it or not, because it
Mm-hmm.
was such a big deal. The Brady Bunch, right? They had the
Mm-hmm.
famous UFO episode, which turned
Right.
out to be Greg trying to prank
Yeah.
the
Marsha.
kids.
Right. With a curtain and like a whistle and all and a flashlight. Very, very low tech, but good work, Greg.
And then an Air
Yeah.
Force guy, like a Project Blue Book guy, comes by, and now he's interested because he heard there was a UFO sighting, and they
Uh-huh.
have to admit
Mm-hmm.
what they've done. And we've mentioned this before on a previous episode, but Green Acres actually had a UFO episode with Billy Mooney, where he was
Ah.
a little kid who had somehow uh, built a spaceship and went to the moon and came back, and the moon rocks are singing. It was the most acid trip HR Puffin Stuff episode you've ever seen of Green fucking Acres.
Right.
Check out that episode. Petticoat Junction, for God's sake.
Oh my
Chris, I
God.
think that only had one season, Petticoat Junction, which is a spinoff of Green Acres. They had a UFO episode where a strange visitor came to stay at the Shady Rest, and he could fix things with his mind, and you just kind of got the sense that he's a very Twilight Zone-y, otherworldly person.
Mm-hmm.
Bewitched had an episode.
Right.
I Dream a Genie made references to it.
Mm-hmm.
Gilligan's Island certainly had,
Right.
far out UFO
Yes.
stuff. Yeah.
Right. And then you even had a sitcom, right? My Favorite Martian, right?
There you go.
Bill Bixby and Ray Walston, an entire show
Yeah.
like, where he had his uncle Martin.
Uncle
I see what you did there, right? And they had the very high tech like TV antennas would just kind of pop up from the back of his head. So, but at that point, it had become such part of the culture that like, hey, we're gonna rather than have it was great. Rather than have a show with a widowed parent, raising, single parent on their own, it was a, single guy with his uncle Martin. So, you're right. So it become a part of pop culture. And I think on so many levels that where you can make jokes about it and have sitcoms about it, or you could just be deadly serious about what you thought and not what you thought,
Right.
what you believed, or better yet, Jeff, what you wanted to believe. Because I know, and I would hear from you because I know the stuff that I wanted to believe, and I'm sure there was the things that you wanted to believe, right?
No, for sure. Completely. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I think for me anyway, it went from fun and lighthearted and kind of raising an eyebrow on sitcoms and maybe
Mhm.
an occasional special on TV where they might discuss UFOs to suddenly with the arrival of a single movie and actually
Mhm.
watching that movie in the big screen, right, or on the big screen, and really being immersed in it. Of course, I'm talking about Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Yes.
That was life changing for me,
Mhm.
mostly because it was
Me
just
too.
so well executed, and
Mhm.
you really came out of that believing, just like I did when I left, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and the very
Mhm.
first thing I wanted to do was jump on the back of the first Jeep that was driving away and see if I could climb over the top of
Uh,
it and kick the guy out and take over the Jeep. I
uh-huh.
really left that theater believing 100% that there is a government cover up
Right.
and
Right.
UFOs are real.
Mhm.
So well done.
Well, yeah, because it's what did it say? It said, "We are not alone," right? Was basically the tagline. And I think so there was that part. You threw in the government part. You threw in again one of the things that we talked about, one of the urban legends, one of the things, the Bermuda Triangle was again something that we had heard about, and they explained the Bermuda Triangle in the first 5 minutes of the film of Close Encounters. And I hope I'm not spoiling it for anybody who hasn't seen it. It came out in 77,
Right.
78.
I love it when you
Okay.
do spoiler alerts that are
Right.
40 years old. I think you're safe, Chris. I don't think anyone's going to get mad.
But so just basically, here's Spielberg, not quite a genius at that point, considered one, but he was on his way. It's like, just here's I'm just going to explain away the Bermuda Triangle. It was just like perfect genius. But that part of it, and I think maybe the coolest part of that, and this is where it became relatable for someone like you, someone like me, when we're in elementary school, is that it was the everyman kind of story, right? There was no Captain Kirk. There was no Han Solo. There was
Yeah.
nothing that was out of the ordinary. It was grounded in reality. And you had a guy, you had these random people who had these visions, and they all went to Devil's Tower in, is it Idaho or Montana? I forget where it is.
Wyoming, I thought. But yeah,
Wyoming. Yeah,
maybe. Or
right,
yeah, I
right.
thought so. But yeah.
Same difference. Okay, so, but these random people, these everyday people in pursuit of this because they all shared this experience. And that made it even more relatable because part of you going like, oh my God, wouldn't that be cool? Right. And oh my God, that could happen to me because again, I'm not Captain Kirk and I'm not Han Solo. And it's not this fantastical adventure. I'm this, you know, Richard Dreyfuss, who worked for, the local utility, and everything about it was just so grounded in reality that, yeah, if you didn't think that was possible, going in, coming out of that theater, you're like, okay, mind blown, I'm in. Where can I find more information about this? There has to be something to this.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he did such a great job, and years later when I was so fascinated by UFOs, I mean I still am, but I was so fascinated by them that I did a lot of research. And Chris, I'm going to do this. Do you see what I have here? Air quotes. Okay? Because the research that I was able to do kind of like throughout the late 80s and throughout the early 90s and such, that was when the internet was very young. So, if you think that there is dubious information on the internet right now, you should have seen it back then where,
Right. Right.
the only people that even had the ability to even fucking post something on the internet that could actually access a computer and get on the internet is going to be someone who's already a little bit cuckoo, for the most
Right.
part. So,
Uh,
oh my God, right? It was hard to sift through all the nonsense. But one thing you did learn is that, like with all government things, the government really doesn't know much of anything. It is a bunch of red tape. It is a bunch of disconnected nonsense. And so
mhm,
the one thing I learned that the whole UFO investigation that I did, in my personal life was the reason that that information is so easy to keep secret is because no actual person in the normal government knows about that stuff, right? It's all this need to know,
mhm,
compartmentalized, black ops, military industrial complex. And that's what Close Encounters really played into, right, Chris? Because
mhm,
they showed you the veneer of, hey, it's a chemical spill and we have to shut down this entire area and we're going to
mhm.
put fake, dead cows out
And
there
yeah, dead
and make
bird.
everybody believe that there's some kind of an issue,
Right.
right? And secretly, there's this think tank group that is going to make contact with the aliens. And sorry, but we common folk out here, regular citizens, we don't need to know, right?
Mhm.
And so, man, that was just so well done on every level.
Right.
And then at the end, the payoff of it's nighttime, it's dark, and this giant mothership lands. And thank God,
Mhm.
the aliens are friendly. I mean, as friendly as you can be for abducting, bomber pilots,
Or
out of
small
their
children.
airplanes, yeah, or small children, and then replacing them and going, hey, sorry, I hope
Right.
that wasn't traumatic for you at all.
Right.
Peace and love. It's like, well, fuck, dude, that was pretty gnarly, but
Right.
okay.
Right, and all of a sudden, guys that are at the time, they haven't aged in 30 some years, and
Right.
it's just like, hey, but at the same time, and you're right, and I think the whole, and it also kind of threw in, if you remember, like the black helicopter sort of aspect when they were trying to get to the mountain, and it was like Richard Dreyfuss and the other two characters, and they were being chased, and
And
and it was
gassed.
basically a race, gas. So it was like they had that part, but I think there's one thing, and Jeff, you kind of touched on it earlier when you were talking about, we didn't have a lot to go on, right? So
Yeah.
we had to go on urban legends, and we had to go on conspiracy theories, and we had to get one nugget. And again, if it was who built the pyramids or how did Stonehenge get there, and it was aliens, right? But in the sense of like, and you talk about, and things that we can just like, two of the bigger ones at our time in that time were Bigfoot, right, and the
Hmm.
Loch Ness Monster. The
Yeah.
big there was, and we've all seen it. That famous grainy footage of somebody kind of walking like some sort of, not man, not ape kind of character, Sasquatch, and he kind of, everybody's seen that footage a zillion times.
Hmm.
Plus that one photo, here's my air quotes, photo of
Hmm.
the Loch Ness Monster that nobody can
Yeah.
explain, nobody knew its origins, nobody could claim or debunk. So,
Hmm.
and that was, and legends were built off those photos. Industries were built off those photos, and
Hmm.
attitudes, subcultures built off of a single photo or a single piece of footage. And I think Spielberg even kind of talked, tackled that again. There's part, excuse me, in Close Encounters where he's like, "This is a picture of a UFO," and people go, "Yes." And then the character picks up a metal plate and goes, "My son threw this in the air, and I took a picture of it." So to just kind of say how easily you could debunk something, or just how easily you could be fooled. But to this day,
Hmm.
nobody has shown what that footage of that Bigfoot is, or that Loch Ness and again, legends were literally born off of those.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it's, I think the thing that I found the most interesting when I was looking into UFOs, and again, it's so funny to say that, looking into, Chris, like you can just peruse it and look into it, but um, is there's personality types. I'm definitely the personality type that wants so bad to think that there is magic and wonder and things beyond our imagination. I'm still that kid that saw Star Trek for the first time, or Star Wars, or read the Chronicles of Narnia. I want the wardrobe to go into a magical realm. So I'm very open-minded. Some might say gullible and naive, but I'll give them that. But I'll take a little bit of evidence and I'll keep my mind open. Then there's the other personality type that do not like open-ended anything. They like everything to be in a nice, neat little shell
Uh-huh.
and to fit within the worldview. And there's nothing wrong with that. But these are the people where just as much as I could say, I now believe in Bigfoot based on the William Patterson footage that's so famous that you said, I'm
Uh-huh.
also right next door to the person who says, yeah, but somebody admitted that that was just a costume and they were just pranking him. Therefore, not only is that fake, but all Bigfoot sightings are fake. And
Uh-huh.
everything to do with Bigfoot has now been officially debunked, and there is no such thing as Bigfoot. And you're like, dude, I feel like you really are afraid of Bigfoot, right? I feel like you're kind of projecting here a little bit. I'm not sure
Uh-huh.
this proves the inexistence of Bigfoot,
Right.
but okay. And you can just kind of see people that get so nervous about the possibility, and they just get so scared that it could be, that they just want to shut the whole thing down. Yep, that's it. That guy just threw up a tin can and someone else thought
Uh-huh.
it was a UFO. That means there's no UFOs, never have been, never will be. We're alone in the universe, trillions of galaxies, it's only us. The end, case closed.
Right. And,
Whatever. I don't
and,
know who's more gullible.
exactly. The person who wants to explain because they want to feel safe and secure. And
Right.
there's a reasonable explanation for that. And it's just
Right.
like because if there's not a reasonable explanation for that something, I'm okay with it. You know what I mean? I think there was a time, obviously, where yes, when we were kids, when there was a certain fear factor involved, but I think no, it's okay. So somebody else can explain it away, but then someone can say, no, it's just all conjecture and it's all who's proving what you want to believe. I'm all about the story. I think the stories are you want the stories. You want to believe the stories. We
Right.
tell stories on this podcast. And to me, the story is the payoff. I don't have any UFO stories personally, but I absorbed a ton of them. But the one that stuck with me, and I ask you, I want to hear what you experienced or what you
Mhm.
stuck with you or what the one that has always stuck with me is Jimmy Carter said he saw a UFO when he was a naval officer. Jimmy
Mhm.
Carter was not a crazy person. Jimmy
No.
Carter, ran for president. Jimmy Carter, it got much more credit and after his presidency than he did. We're not going to have that conversation. But if
Yeah.
someone like Jimmy Carter, who and that was, and he. They even tried to tell him when he was running, it's like, play that down, do not talk about it, say you were misquoted, say that's not. Jimmy Carter stuck to his guns. I saw a UFO, I reported it. And
Mhm.
it's just like, so the credibility part is huge for me. From what I understand, you've got UFO insights or something that
Well,
stuck with you over all these years.
Well, yeah, for me, UFOs is a big story. We'll go into it on a different podcast because, as you know, Chris, I took my UFO adventure probably farther than it should have gone and ended up on a helping with a documentary with a whole bunch of actual government witnesses and all that, and that was really fun and cool. But it's a whole different story. But one thing I can tell you is when I worked up in Los Angeles, kind of behind the scenes in the Hollywood film industry. I worked at a post production studio where we would edit and get things ready for air. And I was working in a DVD department back when DVDs were brand new, and I would help filmmakers create content for the DVDs. I
The bonus
every
material.
day, yeah, every day I would have lunch with the engineers. And these are guys that won Technical Achievement Emmy Awards for turning an IBM supercomputer into an editing machine, right? So these were very left brain, super logical, very pragmatic guys, funny as hell, wonderful guys, but not prone to exaggeration. In fact, I would
Uh-huh.
say exaggeration was not even a part of their spirit. They
Uh-huh.
just couldn't do it. It was outside of their ability, right? So
Got it.
they had heard me many times prattle on and on and on about my stupid UFO stories when we would all have lunch.
Uh-huh.
One day, after a year or two of these lunches, one of the engineers, just the most soft spoken, nicest guy on the planet, goes, Jeff, I can't say whether they're definitely real or not, but I can tell you something that happened to me one night. So if you guys want to hear it, I'll tell you my story. Everyone went dead silent because this was not the
Mm.
guy to make something up. And we were like, is he shitting us right now? Is this
Wow.
really going to happen out of
Wow.
this guy? He said, Chris, that late one night, he and his buddies were coming home from something, and they were on Interstate 1. And for those of you that don't know and you're not from California, Interstate 1, especially back in the 70s, which was when this was
Mhm.
oftentimes just a 2-lane road. It ran through mountainous areas. It sometimes runs
Mhm.
through cliff sides. But
Yep.
it was very remote in sections back in the day. You're not going to see street lights, right? This is a 2-lane, very
Mhm.
picturesque road. It's late at night. They're all driving. Um, he is in the front seat. He's got a friend in the back seat. He looks in the rearview mirror and he sees, just like Close Encounters, right? He sees
Mhm.
lights that are maybe 4 or 5 feet off the road,
Mhm.
but they're coming very quickly up on him from behind. And he's like, that's funny. I don't remember seeing a car there. Am I just not seeing this right? Is there an airport nearby? Because it just didn't look quite like a car. The lights were too far apart, the
Mhm.
two basically headlights, if you will. And Chris, all of a sudden, everyone's turning around to look at it, and it goes behind the car. Then it goes around the side of the car, and everyone in the car, are you ready for this, can see it's hovering.
Oh.
It is up close. It's only 4 feet away from the car, and it's this orb, like a metal orb with lights. And it then
What?
goes into the front of the car, right? And it's right off the front hood. And then Chris, it does the classic UFO thing, shoots into the sky at 1,000,000,000 miles an hour and disappears into the distance. Now, here's the reaction from everybody. You would think that the reaction would be, oh my God, what the fuck? Holy shit.
Mhm.
And maybe you would even swerve off the road. I don't know.
Yeah.
It was just dead silent. Not one person said a goddamn thing. They just kept driving. My buddy just sat there thinking about it and thinking about it and thinking about it. When they got to their destination, they talked a little bit about it. What do you think just happened? I don't understand. But it was really just him that was trying to piece it together and talk to these guys. One of the guys next to him sort of wanted to talk about it and was kind of like, yeah, man, I don't get it. Like, that makes no sense. The other guys, dead silent. It's almost as if it was just too much for your brain to take. And here's the greatest part of the story, I think. Obviously, they never figured out what it was,
Mhm.
but I asked him every question you could ask. Are you sure? Did you for sure see it? Was there anything else on the road? And everything was, Jeff, you know me. I'm an observer. I'm going to tell you exactly what I saw. No, it was a metal orb. It had these lights. It was right next to the car. It floated and it shot off into the distance. Years and years later, he met up with these guys again and he brought up that story. Not one single guy could remember any of it. They had I don't mean completely erased it. Like, they're like, I remember something like that. Yeah, I think that might have happened. Oh yeah, that sounds kind of familiar. And he's just looking at him like, are you fucking kidding me right now? What is happening? And I think it's this thing called cognitive dissonance, right? Where your brain, it just can't handle it. It's too far out of your safe zone and you just can't see it, right? Like, they always talked about the very first time that natives in certain areas saw a man on horseback and they just assumed it was one creature. They couldn't even
Mhm.
fathom that it was two things, or saw a British frigate in the ocean off in the distance. And it's so fantastic and so beyond their imagination that they can't even see the ship. Your brain won't even allow you to see it. So again, I'm not going to get into a big psychological thing here, I guess, but I'm too late. I already did. But isn't that fascinating, right? That how we take in information and stuff that just becomes too much for us to handle, I guess, right?
It's like when you've seen the green flash. Like I've seen the green flash like one time in my life looking at sunsets over the Pacific Ocean.
Mhm.
One time
Mhm.
I've seen the green flash, but I feel like at least I've seen the green flash. It's just like, and other people say it doesn't exist. I've never seen it. Other people say I've seen it multiple times. It's
Sure.
just like, but it's, you want to believe it and you finally saw it and you're secure in what you saw. And I think he's secure in what they saw. I think either theirs were either erased or again, they were so traumatized, they buried it like a repressed memory.
I myself experienced something similar, and this story
Uh-huh.
we have to jump from one paranormal thing to another. So we're gonna
Okay.
jump paranormal genres for just 1 second, if you'll allow me here. Which is, I have a buddy named Jonathan. I went to high school with him. You know Jonathan, really
Uh-huh.
good friend of mine. And again, this guy is, I think we're kind of like kindred spirits.
Uh-huh.
Dry, sarcastic humor, open-minded for sure. I don't think I have a more open-minded friend than my buddy Jonathan.
Uh-huh.
And he was at my house once, when I was living with my parents in either just out of high school or something right around that time frame.
Uh-huh.
And it was like 11:30 or 12 o'clock at night. My parents are asleep. We're hanging out downstairs. We're watching probably David Letterman. We both fall asleep. He falls asleep on the couch with his legs kind of elevated on the arm of the couch, so much
Uh-huh.
so that they had fallen asleep. Both his legs had fallen asleep.
Okay.
Ouch. Okay. Um, there's a coffee table right next to the sofa, and it has cream soda and a root beer. Right. So there's
Okay.
tin cans half full of cream soda and root beer. And then there's a glass, a couple glasses that are these really thick glasses from back in the day, right? These are tumblers, so to speak, and big, thick, glasses, and they're half full of cream soda and root beer. This will all
Uh-huh.
make sense in a second. I'm on the floor completely sound asleep with my head on a pillow. He fell asleep. Here's what we wake up to: the loudest cracking, smashing of glass. We both bolt upright. What is going
Uh-huh.
on? One of the glasses on the coffee table has not rolled off the coffee table. It hasn't been bumped by one of our legs. It
Uh-huh.
flew across the fucking room and smacked into the wall. And there is root beer or cream soda all over the wall. And it's cracked and broken and laying on the floor. Now, that glass went about 8 feet across the room and smacked into the wall. All we can do is wake up and look around. He can't even move his legs. They weren't touching the table.
Uh-huh.
He's trying to overcome his legs falling asleep. I'm like, what? And we see the glass. We see that it was smacked off the table. We see it 8 feet away. We can see that everything else on the table is sitting there perfectly still. Chris, the liquid in the other glass isn't even jiggling or moving.
Uh-huh.
It's just like someone picked it up and threw it across the room. And of course, my parents are sound asleep. There's no one else in the house. Nobody touched the table. And all you can do is look at each other and go, what the? My point in all of this is, years later, I asked Jonathan about this and he had actually forgotten about it. And even he was surprised that he had forgotten about it. He's like, how? How could I forget about that experience? And yet your brain just kind of doesn't want to grab onto it.
I've never experienced anything like that. I'm fascinated by it because you
Yeah.
want there to be an explanation, but the supernatural part of it, that would be a good enough explanation.
My God, dude. Talk about something that happened that you still can't believe and you're having a hard time. I'm pinching myself. I know you're pinching yourself. And then a week from now, we're going to remind ourselves, oh shit, that's right. Malcolm McDowell was on the show, right? Just so fucking cool.
Amazing. Amazing. And I'm almost out of Moloko, so I'm gonna have to get a refill here.
Grab some Malaco, get ready for the old in, out, in, out. I don't know how we're going to top this one, but what do you say? Until next time.
Until next time, Jeff.